Jennifer Hayes pushed through the automatic doors of St. Mary's Medical Center at exactly 6:45 in the morning. She was early, as always. 15 years of nursing had taught her that being late meant chaos and chaos meant mistakes, and Jennifer Hayes did not make mistakes. The emergency department was already buzzing with activity. 2 ambulances sat in the bay, their lights still flashing. Inside, phones rang constantly, and the smell of antiseptic mixed with burnt coffee from the break room filled the air. Jennifer tied her hair back into a tight bun and clipped her badge onto her scrubs. The photo on it showed a younger version of herself, smiling broadly. These days she smiled less. The job had a way of doing that to people. "Morning, Jennifer," called out Tom, one of the ER doctors, rushing past with a clipboard. "Morning," she replied, already scanning the patient board. 3 beds needed to be turned over. 4 people in the waiting room. 1 trauma case coming in 15 minutes. And they were short 2 nurses because of the flu going around. Perfect. Just perfect. Jennifer grabbed her coffee from her locker and headed to the nurses' station. She was known around the hospital as the nurse who ran things like clockwork. Some people called her strict. Others called her difficult. Jennifer called herself thorough. In her mind, there was a right way to do things and a wrong way. Following the rules kept patients safe. It kept the hospital running smoothly. And it kept her sane. By 7:30, she was already dealing with her 3rd difficult situation of the morning. A patient's family member had tried to walk into the surgical prep area. Jennifer had stopped them, explained the rules, and sent them back to the waiting room. The family member had complained, but Jennifer didn't care. Rules were rules for a reason. That's when she saw her. A woman walked through the emergency entrance, but something about her was off. She wasn't rushing like someone with an emergency. She wasn't looking lost or scared like most visitors. She was just walking casually, looking around like she was at a shopping mall instead of a hospital. The woman wore jeans, a plain gray cardigan over a white t-shirt, and comfortable sneakers. Her dark hair was loose around her shoulders, and she carried a large coffee cup from the cafe down the street. Jennifer watched as the woman walked right past the check-in desk without stopping. She headed toward the hallway that led to the staff areas. Jennifer's jaw tightened. Here we go again, she thought. Another person who thinks the rules don't apply to them. The woman pulled out her phone and started typing something, still walking slowly through the department. She paused near the medication room, looking at the door with interest. Then she moved on toward the nurses' station, her eyes taking in everything around her. Jennifer set down her chart and walked quickly to intercept her. Her shoes squeaked slightly on the polished floor. "Excuse me," Jennifer said, her voice firm. "This area is for hospital staff only. Visitors need to check in at the front desk and get a visitor's pass." The woman looked up from her phone and smiled. It was a warm smile, the kind that reached her eyes. "Oh, I'm just taking a quick look around. Don't worry, I won't be in anyone's way." Jennifer felt her frustration rising. This happened all the time. People thought they could just wander wherever they wanted. They didn't understand that hospitals had rules for safety reasons, infection control, patient privacy, security. "I understand," Jennifer said, though her tone suggested she didn't understand at all. "But hospital policy requires all non-staff members to stay in designated areas. If you're here to visit someone, I can direct you to the right floor. If you're a patient, you need to check in at registration." The woman's smile didn't fade. She looked at Jennifer with an expression that was hard to read, curious maybe, or amused. "I appreciate your dedication to the rules," she said. "That's exactly what this hospital needs." Jennifer's eyes narrowed. Was this woman mocking her? The casual clothes, the relaxed attitude, the complete disregard for hospital protocol. It all rubbed Jennifer the wrong way. She had been dealing with stressed relatives and demanding patience all morning. Her patience was already thin. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to insist that you either check in properly or leave this area. I don't have time to argue about this." The woman took a sip of her coffee, still completely calm. "I'm not trying to argue. I'm just observing." "Observing?" Jennifer's voice went up a notch. "This isn't a museum. This is a working emergency department. We have sick people here. We have privacy laws. You can't just wander around observing." At the nurses' station, Maria, a younger nurse who had started just 6 months ago, glanced over. She had been updating patient files but now watched the interaction with wide eyes. Something flickered across Maria's face. Recognition, maybe. But she quickly looked back down at her computer screen. The woman in the cardigan didn't seem bothered by Jennifer's increasingly sharp tone. If anything, she seemed more interested. She glanced at Jennifer's badge, reading the name. "Jennifer Hayes, RN," she said quietly. "How long have you worked here, Jennifer?" The question caught Jennifer off guard. "That's not relevant. What is relevant is that you need to follow hospital protocol." "You're absolutely right," the woman agreed. "Protocol is important, but so is treating people with respect, wouldn't you say?" Jennifer's face flushed. Now she was certain this woman was mocking her. "I am being respectful. I'm doing my job. And my job is to make sure unauthorized people don't wander around restricted areas. Now, for the last time, please either go to registration or leave the hospital." The woman studied Jennifer for a long moment. Her expression had shifted from amused to something more serious. Disappointed, maybe. She set her coffee cup down on a nearby counter and pulled out her phone again, typing something quickly. "May I have your employee number?" the woman asked, her voice still polite but cooler now. "Why do you need my employee number?" Jennifer demanded. "Just for my records." Jennifer let out an exasperated laugh. "My records? Lady, I don't know who you think you are, but I'm about 2 seconds away from calling security. My employee number is 78421. Write that down. Report me to whoever you want. I'm following hospital policy and I'm not apologizing for it." The woman nodded slowly and typed the number into her phone. "Thank you, Jennifer. I hope the rest of your shift goes smoothly." With that, she picked up her coffee and started walking back toward the entrance. But before she left, she paused and looked back at Jennifer one more time. There was something in her eyes that Jennifer couldn't quite identify. Sadness, perhaps, or regret. Jennifer watched her go, feeling a strange sense of unease settle in her stomach. She shook it off. She had done the right thing. She had followed the rules. That woman had no business being in the staff area, no matter how calm and collected she acted. Maria approached Jennifer's side, her voice hesitant. "Jennifer, do you know who that was?" "Some entitled visitor who thought she could go wherever she wanted," Jennifer replied, already turning back to her work. Maria opened her mouth as if to say something else, then closed it again. She bit her lip and walked away quickly, leaving Jennifer alone with that strange, nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right. 2 hours had passed since Jennifer sent that woman away, and the emergency department hadn't slowed down one bit. A kid with a broken arm, an elderly man with chest pains, a construction worker who'd nearly cut off his thumb. Jennifer moved from patient to patient, efficient as always, pushing the earlier encounter out of her mind. She had done her job. That's all that mattered. She was restocking supplies in the trauma bay when Maria appeared beside her, fidgeting with her stethoscope. "Jennifer, can I talk to you for a second?" "Make it quick," Jennifer said, not looking up from the cabinet. "We've got another ambulance coming in 10 minutes. Maria hesitated. "That woman from earlier. The one you sent away. Did you happen to see the email that came out last Friday?" Jennifer slammed the cabinet door harder than she meant to. "What email?" "Maria, I get about 50 emails a day. I don't have time to read every single one, especially the ones from administration about policy changes nobody asked for." "It wasn't about policy changes," Maria said quietly. "It was about the new hospital director." Something cold moved through Jennifer's chest, but she pushed it away. "So what? What does that have to do with some random woman wandering around the ER?" Maria opened her mouth, then closed it again. She looked genuinely scared. "Nothing. Never mind. Forget I said anything." Before Jennifer could respond, Maria hurried away, practically running back to the nurse's station. Jennifer stood there for a moment, that uneasy feeling growing stronger. But then the ambulance radio crackled to life, announcing an incoming stroke patient. And she didn't have time to think about mysterious emails or nervous co-workers. By noon, Jennifer was due for her lunch break. She grabbed her sandwich from the staff refrigerator and headed to the small break room at the end of the hall. A few other nurses were already there, huddled around someone's phone. "Have you seen her yet?" one of them whispered. "I heard she's been walking around all morning," another replied. "She didn't even announce herself. Just showed up in regular clothes." "That's such a power move," the first nurse said. "She wants to see how we really act when we think nobody's watching." Jennifer sat down at the far table, unwrapping her sandwich. "Who are you talking about?" The nurses looked up, suddenly quiet. One of them, Linda, who had worked at St. Mary's for 20 years, cleared her throat. "The new director. She's here today. Making surprise rounds, apparently." Jennifer's sandwich suddenly felt like cardboard in her mouth. What does she look like? Linda pulled out her phone and scrolled through her emails. She turned the screen toward Jennifer. It was a professional headshot. A woman with dark hair, probably in her mid-40s, wearing a navy blazer and a warm smile. The caption read, "Please join us in welcoming Dr. Catherine Morrison, St. Mary's new hospital director." The break room tilted slightly. Jennifer stared at the photo, her mind racing back to that morning. The woman in the jeans and cardigan. The coffee. The calm way she had taken Jennifer's employee number. The look in her eyes, disappointed, sad as she walked away. No, Jennifer, you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Jennifer stood up so fast her chair scraped loudly against the floor. "I need to go." She left her sandwich on the table and walked quickly back to the ER, her heart pounding. Maybe it wasn't the same person. Maybe it was just someone who looked similar. The woman in the photo wore makeup and professional clothes and had her hair styled. The woman from this morning looked like someone's mom running errands. They couldn't be the same person, but deep down Jennifer knew they were. She found Maria at the computer typing up notes. Jennifer grabbed her arm, maybe a little too hard. That woman. This morning? Was it her? Was it the director? Maria's face went pale. She nodded slowly. Jennifer felt like she might throw up. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I tried to," Maria said, her voice shaking. "But you were so sure and you seemed so angry and I didn't know how to say it without making you more upset." "I'm sorry, Jennifer. I should have been braver." Jennifer released Maria's arm and stepped back. Her mind was spinning. She had kicked out the hospital director. She had been rude to her. She had talked down to her like she was some clueless visitor. She had given her employee number with pride like she was daring her to report it. "Oh God," Jennifer whispered. "Oh God, what did I do?" "Maybe it'll be okay," Maria offered weakly. "Maybe she'll understand you were just following protocol." But Jennifer knew better. It wasn't about the protocol. It was about how she had done it. The tone of voice, the impatience, the assumption that this woman was just another rule breaker who needed to be put in her place. Jennifer had treated her like she was nothing. The rest of the afternoon crawled by. Every time someone from administration walked past, Jennifer's stomach dropped. Every time her phone buzzed, she thought it was the call, the one telling her to come to HR. But nothing happened. The shift continued. Patients came and went. The department stayed busy. Maybe she had gotten lucky. Maybe Dr. Morrison hadn't taken it personally. Maybe she understood that hospitals were stressful places and nurses had to deal with difficult situations all day long. At 3 o'clock, Jennifer was helping a patient into a wheelchair when Tom, the ER doctor, approached her. "Hey, Jennifer, Susan wants to see you." Susan Chen was the chief nursing officer, Jennifer's direct supervisor's supervisor. The person who oversaw all the nurses in the entire hospital. Jennifer's hands went numb. "Did she say why?" Tom shrugged. "Nope, just said to send you up when you had a free minute. She's in her office on the 4th floor." A free minute, as if there was ever such a thing in the ER. But everyone knew that when Susan Chen wanted to see you, you went immediately. It wasn't a request. Jennifer finished with the patient, told Linda she was covering for her, and made her way to the elevator. Her legs felt weak. Her scrub suddenly felt too tight. She pressed the button for the 4th floor and watched the numbers light up. 2nd floor. 3rd floor. 4th floor. The administrative wing was quieter than the ER. Carpeted floors instead of tile. The smell of coffee instead of antiseptic. Framed photos of the hospital's history lined the walls. Jennifer had only been up here a handful of times in 15 years. Nurses belonged on the floors, not in the executive offices. She found Susan's office at the end of the hall. The door was partially open. Jennifer knocked softly. "Come in," Susan's voice called. Jennifer pushed the door open and stepped inside. Susan sat behind her desk, her face serious. And next to her, in a chair by the window, sat the woman from this morning. But she didn't look like someone's mom anymore. She wore a burgundy blazer over a white blouse. Her hair was pulled back in a professional style. Her hospital ID badge hung around her neck, clearly visible. Dr. Catherine Morrison, hospital director. Their eyes met, and Jennifer felt every word she had said that morning come rushing back to haunt her. The dismissive tone, the impatience, the way she had practically ordered this woman to leave. And the worst part, the absolute worst part, was the look on Dr. Morrison's face. Not angry, not vindictive, just deeply, quietly disappointed. "Jennifer," Susan said, her voice carefully neutral. "Please have a seat. We need to talk." Jennifer's legs carried her to the empty chair. She sat down, her hands folded in her lap, and waited for her world to fall apart. The silence in the office was suffocating. Jennifer could hear the clock on the wall ticking. Each second felt like an hour. She kept her eyes down, staring at her hands in her lap. Her fingers were trembling slightly, so she pressed them together harder. Susan spoke first. "Jennifer, Dr. Morrison is here making rounds today. She wanted to observe the hospital in a natural state, see how things really run when staff don't know they're being watched. It's something she does at every hospital she directs. She finds it gives her a more honest picture than formal tours." Jennifer nodded, not trusting herself to speak yet. Dr. Morrison leaned forward slightly. Her voice was calm, professional. "I arrived at St. Mary's around 7 this morning. I came through the emergency entrance because I wanted to start where the hospital meets the community. Where people come in their most vulnerable moments." Jennifer finally found her voice. It came out smaller than she expected. "I didn't know. I thought you were just a random person breaking the rules." Dr. Morrison finished. She didn't say it meanly, just matter of fact. "That's exactly what you thought. And honestly, that part doesn't bother me. You saw someone in the staff area without proper identification. You followed protocol. That's your job." Jennifer's head snapped up, hope flickering in her chest. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad. Maybe she'd understand, but Dr. Morrison wasn't finished. "What concerns me is how you did it. The tone, the assumptions, the complete lack of willingness to listen." She pulled out her phone and scrolled through something. "You said," and I'm quoting here because I wrote it down, "Lady, I don't know who you think you are. You spoke to me the way someone speaks to a child who's being deliberately difficult." The hope in Jennifer's chest died. Her face burned with shame. Susan shifted in her chair. "Jennifer, you've been with us for 15 years. Your record is excellent. You're one of our most reliable nurses. But we've had complaints before about your approach with people. Your manner can be very harsh," Dr. Morrison supplied. "Dismissive, impatient." "I was busy," Jennifer said, and immediately hated how defensive she sounded. "We were short-staffed. I had patients waiting. I've been dealing with people breaking rules all morning. Someone tried to walk into the surgical prep area earlier. Another person tried to take photos in the ER. I was just trying to do my job and keep everyone safe." "I understand that," Dr. Morrison said. "Truly I do. I was a nurse for 12 years before I went into administration. I worked in emergency departments in 3 different cities. I know exactly how stressful it is. I know what it's like to be short-staffed and overwhelmed and dealing with people who don't understand why rules exist." Jennifer looked up, surprised. She hadn't known Dr. Morrison had been a nurse. "But here's what I learned in those years," Dr. Morrison continued. "Being stressed doesn't give us permission to treat people poorly. Being right doesn't mean we can be cruel. And assuming the worst about people says more about us than it does about them." The words hit Jennifer like a physical blow. She wanted to argue. She wanted to explain that she wasn't cruel. She was just efficient. That hospitals couldn't run on politeness and gentle words alone. That someone had to enforce the rules. But sitting there, seeing herself through Dr. Morrison's eyes, she couldn't find the words. "What bothered me most," Dr. Morrison said, and now her voice was quieter, sadder, "was that when I tried to de-escalate the situation, you escalated it further. When I said I was just observing, you became more aggressive. When I tried to have a conversation, you threatened to call security. You never once considered that maybe, just maybe, there was something you didn't know." Jennifer's throat felt tight. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I should have. I don't know what I should have done differently, but I know I shouldn't have done that." Susan handed Jennifer a tissue. She hadn't even realized she was crying until then. "Help me understand something," Dr. Morrison said. "When you interact with patients' families, is this how you speak to them? When someone is scared or confused, do you treat them the same way you treated me?" "No," Jennifer said immediately. "No, with patients and families, I'm different. I'm patient with them. I explain things. I understand they're going through a hard time. So why wasn't I given that same consideration?" Jennifer opened her mouth, then closed it. She thought about that moment in the hallway. The woman in casual clothes with her coffee. And she realized the ugly truth. Because you didn't look like you were going through a hard time. You looked comfortable, confident, like you didn't need anyone's help. And I assumed that meant you were just another person who thought rules didn't apply to them. Dr. Morrison nodded slowly. And there it is. You made a judgment based on appearance, on assumption, and you treated me according to that judgment without ever questioning whether you might be wrong. The office fell quiet again. Jennifer wiped her eyes, feeling exposed and small. I've been doing this job for so long, Jennifer said finally. Every day I deal with difficult situations. Family members who get angry when they can't see patients during certain procedures. People who think they know better than the doctors. Visitors who try to smuggle in food that could harm patients with dietary restrictions. After 15 years, I guess I just started assuming everyone was going to be a problem. That's burnout, Dr. Morrison said gently. That's what happens when we spend so long protecting ourselves from the hard parts of the job that we forget to see the humanity in people. I've been there. Every nurse I know has been there at some point. Susan leaned forward. Jennifer, we're not firing you. We want to be very clear about that. But this can't happen again. The way you treated Dr. Morrison today, if you'd done that to a patient's family member, we'd be dealing with a formal complaint. Maybe even a lawsuit. Jennifer nodded, tears streaming down her face now. What happens now? Dr. Morrison and Susan exchanged a look. Susan pulled out a folder from her desk drawer. Mandatory training, Susan said. Communication skills. Conflict de-escalation. Patient and family-centered care. You'll attend workshops over the next 3 months. You'll also be required to write a reflection on this incident and what you've learned from it. And, Dr. Morrison added, you'll meet with me once a month. Not as punishment, but because I want to help you find your way back to why you became a nurse in the first place. Before the burnout. Before you started seeing everyone as a potential problem instead of a person. Jennifer looked at Dr. Morrison through blurry eyes. Why are you being so nice about this? I was awful to you. You could fire me. You'd be justified. Dr. Morrison smiled sadly. Because I don't believe in throwing people away when they make mistakes. I believe in helping them grow. And because I see something in you, Jennifer. Underneath all that defensiveness and burnout, there's a nurse who actually cares deeply. You wouldn't be so protective of your department if you didn't. You're just going about it the wrong way. Jennifer nodded, unable to speak. Go home, Susan said. You're off the schedule for the rest of today and tomorrow. Take some time. Think about things. When you come back, we'll start fresh. Jennifer stood up on shaky legs. She looked at both women. Thank you. I know I don't deserve this chance, but thank you. As she reached the door, Dr. Morrison called out, Jennifer? She turned back. We all mess up. Every single one of us. What matters is what we do after. Jennifer sat in her car in the hospital parking lot for 20 minutes before she could bring herself to drive home. Her hands gripped the steering wheel, but she couldn't make herself turn the key. She kept replaying the conversation in Susan's office over and over. Every word Dr. Morrison had said felt like it was carved into her brain and made a judgment based on appearance. Being right doesn't mean we can be cruel. You started seeing everyone as a potential problem instead of a person. When she finally made it home, her husband David was in the kitchen making dinner. He took one look at her face and turned off the stove. What happened? Jennifer told him everything. The woman in the cardigan. The confrontation. The horrible moment when she realized who she'd been talking to. David listened without interrupting, which made it somehow worse. She wanted him to tell her it wasn't that bad, that anyone would have done the same thing, but he didn't. You've been different lately, he said finally. The last couple of years especially. You come home angry. You talk about work like it's a war zone. I kept thinking it was just the stress, that it would pass, but what? He looked uncomfortable. Remember last month at the restaurant? When the waiter got our order wrong and you snapped at him? Or when our neighbor asked if you could help with her mom's medication questions and you told her you don't give medical advice off the clock? You weren't wrong exactly, but the way you said things. It wasn't like you, or at least not like the you I married. Jennifer felt something crack open inside her chest. She had been so focused on being right, on maintaining control, on following the rules, that she hadn't noticed herself becoming someone she didn't like, someone harsh, someone who had forgotten how to be kind. That night, she couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about the 15 years she'd spent at St. Mary's. When had it changed? When had she stopped seeing patients and families as people? and started seeing them as problems to manage. She remembered her first year as a nurse, how excited she'd been, how patient. She remembered staying late to sit with a scared teenager who had no family. She remembered making an elderly woman laugh during a difficult procedure. She remembered why she'd wanted to be a nurse in the first place, to help people in their most vulnerable moments. Somewhere along the way, she'd lost that. The job had beaten it out of her. The endless shifts, the death and pain and impossible situations, the families who blamed nurses for things beyond their control, the system that demanded more and more with less and less support. She'd built walls to protect herself, and those walls had turned into a prison. The next day was harder. She had nowhere to go, nothing to do but think. She tried watching television but couldn't focus. She tried reading, but the words blurred together. Finally, she opened her laptop and started writing the reflection paper Susan had assigned. It was supposed to be about what she'd learned from the incident. But Jennifer found herself writing about much more than that. She wrote about a patient from 5 years ago, a man who'd been difficult and demanding, who'd complained about everything. She'd dismissed him as another problem patient. 2 days later, they'd discovered he had a brain tumor affecting his behavior. She'd felt terrible then, but she'd pushed it aside. Too many other things to deal with. She wrote about the family member who'd gotten angry when they couldn't visit during surgery hours. Jennifer had been short with them, annoyed by their inability to follow simple rules. She'd never stopped to think that maybe they were terrified and just needed reassurance. She wrote about all the times she'd been right but unkind, correct but cold, following protocol while forgetting compassion. By the time David came home from work, Jennifer had filled 12 pages. Her eyes were red from crying, but she felt something shifting inside her. Not fixed exactly, just beginning to break apart so it could heal properly. When she returned to work 2 days later, everything felt different. The ER looked the same. Same fluorescent lights, same antiseptic smell, same organized chaos. But Jennifer saw it through new eyes. Maria spotted her first. "Jennifer, you're back. Are you okay?" "I'm working on it," Jennifer said honestly. The morning started with the usual rush. A car accident victim, a child with a high fever, an elderly woman who'd fallen. But Jennifer found herself pausing before each interaction, taking a breath, choosing her words more carefully. When a man tried to follow his wife into the CT scan room, Jennifer's first instinct was to stop him sharply, to remind him of the rules. But she caught herself. She thought about Dr. Morrison, about the kind of nurse she wanted to be. "Sir, I know you want to be with your wife," she said gently. "I understand she's scared and you want to support her. But the CT scan room has equipment that could be dangerous, and we need her to be still for accurate images. I promise we'll take good care of her, and I'll come get you the moment it's done. Would that be okay?" The man's tense shoulders relaxed. "Thank you. Yes, that's fine. We've been married 42 years. This is the first time she's been really sick." "I can see how much you love her," Jennifer said. "That's beautiful. She's lucky to have you." It was such a small thing, such a simple conversation. But the man's eyes filled with tears of gratitude, and Jennifer felt something in her chest that she hadn't felt in years. Connection. Purpose. The reason she'd become a nurse. Later that afternoon, a woman arrived looking for the billing office. She was confused, lost, overwhelmed by the hospital layout. The old Jennifer would have pointed her toward the directory and moved on. Too busy for hand-holding. Instead, Jennifer walked her to the elevator and pressed the button for her. "Third floor, turn right, second door on the left. There's a nice lady named Patricia at the front desk. Tell her Jennifer from the ER sent you. She'll help you figure everything out." The woman squeezed her hand. "Thank you so much. Everyone here has been so kind." Jennifer thought about Dr. Morrison in her casual clothes and coffee cup, observing how staff really treated people. She wondered if the woman would have said that on the day Jennifer had kicked out the hospital director. The first training session happened the following week. Jennifer sat in a conference room with a dozen other hospital staff members, listening to a counselor talk about communication and empathy. Some of the material felt basic, obvious even, but some of it hit hard. "We can't control what happens to us," the counselor said. "We can't control the stress of our jobs or the difficult people we encounter, but we can control how we respond. We can choose kindness even when we're exhausted. We can choose to see the person behind the problem." During a break, one of the other participants approached Jennifer. He was a lab technician she'd seen around but never really talked to. "I heard what happened with you and the new director," he said quietly. Jennifer's stomach dropped. Of course people knew. Hospital gossip spread faster than the flu. "I just wanted to say," he continued, "I think it's brave that you're here, that you're trying to change. A lot of people would have just gotten defensive or quit. You're actually doing the work." Jennifer hadn't thought of it that way. She'd been so focused on her shame and regret that she hadn't considered that maybe, just maybe, there was something admirable about facing your mistakes head on. That evening, she had her first monthly meeting with Dr. Morrison. Jennifer had been dreading it all day, but when she arrived at the director's office, Dr. Morrison greeted her warmly. "How was your first week back?" she asked. Jennifer took a breath. "Hard, but good. I'm trying to be more aware, to pause before I react. It doesn't always work, but I'm trying." Dr. Morrison nodded. "That's all any of us can do, try, fail sometimes. Try again." They talked for an hour, about burnout, about the challenges of healthcare, about finding balance between enforcing necessary rules and treating people with dignity. Dr. Morrison shared stories from her own nursing days, times she'd messed up, lessons she'd learned. As Jennifer left, she realized something surprising. She was actually grateful for what had happened. Grateful for the wake-up call. Because if she'd kept going the way she was, she would have destroyed herself completely. She would have become someone unrecognizable. The journey ahead was long. She knew that. Changing 15 years of habits wouldn't happen overnight. But for the first time in years, Jennifer felt hope. Not just for her career, but for the kind of person she could still choose to be. 6 months later, Jennifer stood in the same emergency department, but she barely recognized the person she'd been that morning when everything changed. The department looked the same. The smell of antiseptic and coffee, the constant beeping of monitors, the rushed footsteps of staff moving between patients. But Jennifer moved through it differently now. "Code Blue, Room 7, the overhead speaker announced. Jennifer ran, but not with the rigid tension she used to carry. She was focused but calm, present but not overwhelmed. The patient, a middle-aged man, had collapsed. The team worked together, chest compressions, medications, defibrillator. Jennifer coordinated everything with steady hands and a clear voice. 20 minutes later, they had him back. Stable, breathing. As the team dispersed, Tom, the ER doctor, pulled Jennifer aside. "That was textbook. You kept everyone calm and focused. Well done." Jennifer nodded her thanks, but what struck her most was how she felt afterward. Tired, yes, but not drained, not angry at the world. She'd done her job well, and that was enough. During her lunch break, Jennifer headed to the conference room where she now spent 1 hour every Tuesday. 3 new nurses sat waiting for her, fresh out of school and looking nervous in their brand new scrubs. This was Jennifer's idea, a mentorship program she'd proposed to Susan and Dr. Morrison 3 months ago. "Welcome," Jennifer said, sitting down across from them. "I'm Jennifer Hayes. I've been a nurse here for 15 years, and I'm going to be honest with you. This job will be the hardest thing you've ever done. It will test you in ways you can't imagine. And if you're not careful, it will change you into someone you don't want to be." The new nurses looked at each other uncertainly. "But," Jennifer continued, her voice softer, "it can also be the most meaningful work you'll ever do. If you let it. If you protect yourself from the burnout without losing your humanity. That's what I want to help you with." Over the next hour, she talked about setting boundaries without building walls, about following protocols while still seeing people as individuals, about recognizing the signs of burnout before it consumed you. And then she told them her story. The whole embarrassing, humbling truth of it. "I kicked out the hospital director," she said, watching their eyes go wide. "Treated her like she was nothing. Because I was so focused on being right that I forgot to be kind. I'd let this job turn me into someone who saw problems instead of people." One of the new nurses, a young woman named Riley, raised her hand timidly. "But how do you balance it? How do you stay kind when you're exhausted and people are breaking rules that exist for good reasons?" Jennifer smiled. It was a good question, the kind she used to get defensive about. You pause. You take a breath. You remember that the person in front of you is having a harder day than you are, and you enforce the rules with respect instead of resentment. After the session, Jennifer walked back through the ER and spotted a man standing near the nurse's station, looking confused. He wore paint-splattered jeans and a faded t-shirt, and he was staring at the patient board on the wall. The old Jennifer would have assumed he was being nosy, reading patient names he had no business seeing. The old Jennifer would have confronted him immediately. The new Jennifer walked up with a smile. "Hi there. Can I help you find someone?" The man startled. "Oh, yes. I'm looking for my daughter. She came in an ambulance about an hour ago. Rodriguez. But I don't know where she is, and nobody at the front desk could tell me anything, and I'm just—" His voice cracked. "I'm really scared." Jennifer gently guided him away from the patient board. "Let me look that up for you. What's her first name?" "Melissa. She's only 19. She was in a car accident." Jennifer checked the computer, found the information. "She's in radiology right now getting some scans." The doctor wanted to make sure everything's okay before letting family in. "That's actually a good sign. It means she's stable enough for tests." The man's shoulders sagged with relief. "So she's going to be okay?" "I can't make promises about outcomes," Jennifer said honestly, "but I can tell you she's getting excellent care. And I can take you to the waiting area closest to radiology. As soon as the scans are done, someone will come get you. Is that okay?" "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you so much." As Jennifer walked him to the waiting area, she thought about how easily this could have gone differently. How 6 months ago, she would have snapped at him for looking at the patient board. She would have seen a rule breaker instead of a terrified father. That afternoon, Dr. Morrison appeared in the ER. It had become her routine, walking through different departments unannounced, talking to staff and patients. But now everyone knew who she was. She still wore casual clothes sometimes, though. Testing, always testing. She stopped by the nurse's station where Jennifer was charting. "How are things?" "Good," Jennifer said. And she meant it. "Really good, actually." Dr. Morrison smiled. "I heard about your mentorship session this morning. Riley came to my office afterward. She said you shared your story with them." "That took courage," Jennifer shrugged. "If my mistake can help someone else avoid the same one, then maybe it was worth something." "You know," Dr. Morrison said, leaning against the counter. "When I first started doing surprise rounds at hospitals, I was looking for problems to fix, staff who weren't following protocol, departments that needed intervention. But over the years, I realized I was also looking for people who could grow, people who could take hard feedback and transform it into something meaningful." "Is that what you were doing that day?" Jennifer asked, looking to see if I could grow. "No," Dr. Morrison said honestly. "That day I was just getting coffee and observing. But when you confronted me and I saw how deep your burnout went, I knew you were at a crossroads. You could either break completely or break open. I'm glad you chose the latter." A call came over the radio. "Another ambulance incoming." Jennifer stood up, ready to move. "Before you go," Dr. Morrison said, "I want you to know that Susan and I have been talking. We're creating a new position, Nurse Wellness Coordinator, someone to help staff recognize burnout, develop mentorship programs, advocate for better working conditions. We'd like you to apply." Jennifer stared at her. "Me? But I'm the one who needed intervention." "Exactly. You understand what it's like. You've done the work to change. And you're not trying to hide what happened. You're using it to help others. That's the kind of person we need in that role." The ambulance was arriving. Jennifer needed to go, but she paused long enough to say, "I'll think about it." "Thank you." As she ran toward the ambulance bay, Jennifer thought about that terrible morning 6 months ago, how sure she'd been that she was right, how completely she'd been wrong. Not about the rules mattered, but about the way she'd enforced them, about the person she'd become. The ambulance doors opened. A young woman on a stretcher, conscious but in pain. Jennifer took her hand. "Hi there, I'm Jennifer. I'm going to take care of you." "Can you tell me your name?" "Melissa," the girl said through tears. "Melissa Rodriguez." Jennifer's heart clenched. The daughter. The terrified father in the waiting room. She squeezed Melissa's hand gently. "Your dad is here. He's been waiting for you. Let's get you taken care of so you can see him soon, okay?" As they wheeled Melissa inside, Jennifer caught sight of her reflection in the glass doors. She looked tired. She was tired, but she didn't look angry anymore. Didn't look like someone barely holding it together. She looked like a nurse who had remembered why she started this work in the first place. Later, after Melissa was treated and reunited with her father, minor injuries, nothing serious, Jennifer sat in the break room. Maria joined her, 2 cups of coffee in hand. Long day? Maria asked. Long 6 months, Jennifer said with a small laugh. You know, I've been wanting to tell you something, Maria said. That day when everything happened, I felt so guilty for not speaking up, for not telling you who that woman was. But watching you since then, seeing how you've changed, learning from you in those mentorship sessions, I realized something. If I had spoken up, you might have avoided that conversation with Dr. Morrison. But you wouldn't have learned what you needed to learn. Jennifer considered that. You're right. Sometimes we need to fall on our face to understand what we're doing wrong. It's just humbling when the whole hospital watches you do it. They both laughed. Real laughter. The kind that comes from growth and healing and knowing you survived something hard. Jennifer's phone buzzed. A text from David. Proud of you. Dinner's ready when you get home. She looked around the emergency department. At the organized chaos. At the staff working together. At the patients and families trusting them with their most vulnerable moments. This was still the hardest job she'd ever had. But it was also once again the most meaningful. And Jennifer Hayes, who had learned to pause before reacting, to choose kindness even when exhausted, to see people instead of problems, she was exactly where she needed to be.